Okay, last part of this lesson deals with power reducing formulas. And both of the power reducing formulas that we're going to look at are derived from the double angle formulas for cosine. So we're going to take the second and third double angle formulas. Um, and what we're going to do here in both of these equations is we're going to isolate the trig function squared. So if I want to isolate sine squared, I'm going to go ahead and move 2 sine squared to the left-hand side. So I'm going to add that to both sides and subtract the cosine of 2x on both sides. So that's going to make 2 sine squared of x equal to 1 minus the cosine of 2x. And then we can either divide both sides by 2 or multiply both sides by 1/2. I'm going to multiply both sides by 1/2. So sine squared of x is going to be 1/2 times the quantity 1 minus the cosine of 2x. When we do the same thing for the other double angle formula for cosine, if I want to isolate cosine squared, I'm going to add 1 to both sides. And then divide both sides by 2. So we get cosine squared of x equal to, again, dividing by 2 or multiplying by 1/2, we get 1/2 times 1 plus the cosine of 2x. Okay, and these two formulas here are the power reducing formulas. If you guys go on to take Calc BC, we use these power reducing formulas quite a bit, especially when it comes to finding area enclosed by a polar curve or area enclosed between two polar curves. So you guys are going to see those power reducing formulas used quite frequently. So let's do a quick exercise in algebra. What we want to do is we want to take the sine of x raised to the 4th power, and we want to use the power reducing formulas to like rewrite that expression. So for the sine of x raised to the 4th power, that's like saying the sine squared of x quantity squared. So the sine squared of x quantity squared, we can replace sine squared with the power reducing formula. So we can replace it with 1/2 times 1 minus the cosine of 2x quantity squared. And then what we're going to do is we're going to apply the square to each of the factors. So we can rewrite this as 1/2 squared, which is 1/4, times the quantity 1 minus the cosine of 2x squared, which we can expand that binomial. So if I FOIL like 1 minus the cosine of 2x times 1 minus the cosine of 2x, when I FOIL that out, that's going to give me 1 minus 2 times the cosine of 2x, and then plus the cosine squared of 2x, which it's a more simplified like expression, but we can take this cosine squared here and then use the power reducing formula to rewrite that expression. So this is going to become 1/4 times 1 minus 2 times the cosine of 2x plus cosine squared of 2x. So if cosine squared of x is 1/2 times 1 plus the cosine of 2x, if we want the cosine squared of 2x, all we're going to do is double the argument on each side of the equation. So all I'm going to do is like plug 2x in the place of x, which is going to make the right-hand side here become 1/2 times 1 plus the cosine of. If I double this argument here, that argument becomes 4x. So I can take the cosine squared of 2x then and rewrite it as 1/2 times 1 plus the cosine of 4x. And then we just want to further simplify this, so I'm going to distribute 1/2 across both of these terms. So we have 1 minus 2 times the cosine of 2x plus 1/2 plus 1/2 times the cosine of 4x. And then I'm going to combine the two constant terms here. So that's 1/4 times 1 plus 1/2 is 3/2 plus 2 times the cosine of 2x plus 1/2 the cosine of 4x. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to distribute 1/4 across all of those terms. So 1/4 times 3/2 is 3/8. 1/4 times 2 times the cosine of 2x is going to be 2/4, which is 1/2 the cosine of 2x. And then 1/4 times 1/2 is going to be 1/8 the cosine of 4x. Okay, I want you guys to use the same technique to rewrite the cosine of x raised to the 4th power. So go ahead and pause the video to do that. When you're done, you can turn it back on and check your work. Okay, so for the cosine of x raised to the 4th power, that's like cosine squared, quantity squared. So we can replace cosine squared with 1/2 times 1 plus the cosine of 2x. And then we're going to square that quantity, which means I'm going to apply the square to each of those factors. So 1/2 squared again is 1/4 times 1 plus the cosine of 2x, quantity squared, which we're going to go ahead and FOIL that expression out. So when I FOIL 1 plus the cosine of 2x squared, we get 1 plus 2 times the cosine of 2x plus the cosine squared of 2x, which is going to make 1/4 times 1 plus 2 times the cosine of 2x. The cosine squared of 2x, just like we did in the previous part, is going to be 1/2 times 1 plus the cosine of, and then we're going to double the argument, which is 4x. Okay, so again, we're going to distribute 1/2 across both of these terms. So we get 1/4 times 1 plus 2 times the cosine of 2x plus 1/2 times 1 is 1/2 plus 1/2 times the cosine of 4x. We're going to combine the constant terms again. So I'm going to kind of skip this intermediate step. So 1 plus 1/2 is 3/2, and then I'm going to distribute 1/4 across everything. So 1/4 times 3/2 is 3/8, plus 1/4 times 2 times the cosine of 2x is going to be 1/2 the cosine of 2x, and then 1/4 times 1/2 the cosine of 4x is going to be 1/8 the cosine of 4x. Okay, so we're just using the power reducing formula twice to rewrite that expression. Okay, so that wraps up the marathon lesson on multiple angle formulas, and you guys are going to have a test on chapter 10 next week. Hope you guys are well. Take care. We'll talk again soon.